When is the last time your rent went down? Well, New York City's Rent Guidelines Board recently considered doing just that, cutting the rent on 2 million New Yorkers. Not freezing, cutting.
For apartments, 1 year lease, -3% to 0%. A 2-year lease, -4.5% to 0%.
That motion got voted down at a recent meeting, and so did a competing proposal to hike rents by as much as 8%.
1 year lease, 3 to 5.5%. 2-year lease, 6 to 8%.
So neither of those extremes are happening, but if you think that means that the rent freeze is a done deal, think again. Stick around because there is a very specific, often overlooked data point that I found that might actually kill Mamdani's rent freeze agenda. But first, let's talk about how we got here, because New York City is the most expensive place to live anywhere in the United States, and every month it's getting worse.
The median rent in Manhattan rose to $5,000 a month in February, and in Brooklyn, $4,296.
When I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich.
Mamdani won the mayor's race in a landslide on promises to make the city more affordable, free buses, city-run grocery stores, and freezing the rent for about 1 million rent-stabilized apartments. These are often older buildings with tenants living on fixed or low incomes. Although there are a number of newer luxury high-rises that are also rent stabilized because they took advantage of tax abatements. So here's how the Rent Guidelines Board actually works. It's a 9-member board with 2 tenant members, 2 owner members, and then 5 public members, all serving staggered terms. But Mamdani was actually able to appoint 6 of the 9 current members. So while he can't control the vote, he certainly stacked the odds in his favor to get his rent freeze over the finish line. The board takes 2 votes, one to set a range, and then a final vote after a series of public hearings. Now, that second vote will happen at the end of June, with rent changes going into effect October 1st. This year, the board voted for rent increases of between 0 and 2% on 1-year leases and 0 and 4% on 2-year leases. And that total range is still lower than what they approved last year. I was there covering it for CBS New York.
People are making money, but we're not making more money.
The rent freeze rhetoric is a great soundbite. People like to hear that, but it's unsustainable.
So is that rent freeze actually going to happen? It is very possible, but not guaranteed. And there's a key specific piece of data that may be the deciding factor. Let me break it down. Every year, the board puts out a report called the Price Index of Operating Costs, analyzing how much it costs to operate a building. Now, the 2026 report reveals that operating costs for landlords is up 5.3% in the last year, driven by surging utilities and maintenance costs, and an 11% hike in fuel and insurance. And get this, over the last 5 years, insurance costs for rent-stabilized buildings has actually increased by nearly 100%. But there is a flip side, because that same data reveals that operating income for those same buildings has actually outpaced expenses, rising by more than 6%. Now, dig deeper and you'll see that increase is driven by properties in Manhattan, including those new luxury buildings seeing income rise by more than 10%, while older properties in the Bronx fell by 0.1%. And in sections of the Bronx, the situation is very bleak, with operating income plummeting more than 13% in Hunts Point and Longwood. So when is your rent going to go down? Well, based on what we know so far, it's not happening this year, and a rent freeze, while quite possible, is no guarantee either. We're going to find out by the end of June. I'm Derek Waller. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and check out this story next.